Plato is one of the greatest philosophers of ancient Greece, whose work has profoundly influenced Western philosophy. Born in the year 427 before Christ in Athens, he was a disciple of Socrates and the teacher of Aristotle. His thought spans multiple aspects, including metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and politics. Throughout his dialogues, Plato attempts to resolve questions about the nature of reality, knowledge, the soul, and justice. The creation of his famous academy in Athens was one of the first centers of philosophical teaching in the ancient world. Plato's legacy, especially his theory of ideas, has been studied for centuries. Platonic metaphysics. At the heart of Platonic philosophy is his theory of ideas or forms. According to Plato, the world we perceive with our senses is not the real world, but a mere imperfect copy of a higher world of perfect and eternal ideas. These ideas are the true realities and constitute the essence of all things. For example, a table in the physical world is an imperfect representation of the idea or form of the table, which exists in the world of ideas. Plato holds that only through reason can we access this world of ideas, while the senses provide us only with opinions and imperfect perceptions. This dualism between the sensible world and the intelligible world is one of the fundamental pillars of Platonic thought. The allegory of the cave. One of the most famous images of Platonic philosophy is the allegory of the cave, which appears in his work The Republic. In this allegory, Plato describes a group of prisoners who have lived chained in a cave since birth, only able to see shadows projected on the wall by objects passing behind them. These shadows are all the prisoners know of reality. However, if one of the prisoners were to free himself and exit the cave, he would discover the outside world and the true reality, understanding that the shadows were only a distorted representation of real things. This allegory illustrates the difference between the sensible world, which we perceive through the senses, and the intelligible world, which we can only know through reason. It also reflects the process of philosophical education, which Plato sees as a kind of liberation from the chains of ignorance, the theory of knowledge. For Plato, true knowledge can only be achieved through the use of reason and not through sensory perception. This is because the objects of the sensible world are ever-changing and, therefore, cannot offer stable and certain knowledge. True knowledge, on the other hand, concerns the ideas, which are eternal and immutable. Plato distinguishes between doxa, opinion, and episteme, knowledge. Opinion refers to what we perceive with the senses, while true knowledge refers to the ideas. The theory of recollection is central to his epistemology. According to this theory, the human soul is immortal and, before birth, existed in the world of ideas, where it contemplated the eternal forms. Upon birth, the soul forgets this knowledge but can recall it through the exercise of reason. Thus, learning is a process of anamnesis or recollection, a remembering of what we already knew in the world of ideas. Plato's ethics. In ethics, Plato advocates for a conception of the good that is closely related to his theory of ideas. According to him, the idea of the good is the highest of all ideas and is the source of all reality and knowledge. The knowledge of the good is the ultimate goal of philosophy, and only those who understand the nature of the good can govern justly and properly. In The Republic, Plato describes his vision of justice both in the individual and in the city. In the individual, justice consists of the harmony between the three parts of the soul: reason, spirit, and appetite. In the city, justice arises when each social class fulfills its proper function. The rulers, who must be philosophers, possess wisdom and govern justly, the guardians protect the city with courage, and the producers meet the material needs of society, the philosopher king. Plato believes that philosophers, being the only ones capable of knowing the true good, are the most suited to govern. In The Republic, he introduces the figure of the philosopher king, a ruler who has attained the knowledge of the good and is thus qualified to govern justly. Plato criticizes forms of government in which rulers are guided by the desire for power or wealth rather than by knowledge and virtue. This political ideal of Plato is profoundly elitist, as it holds that only a small minority, the philosophers, are fit to govern. For Plato, democracy is problematic because it allows people without knowledge to rule based on opinion rather than true knowledge. Plato's politics. In The Republic, Plato presents his ideal political theory, a city-state called Callipolis that is governed by philosopher kings. The city is divided into three classes: the rulers, philosophers, the guardians, warriors, and the producers, artisans and farmers. Each class has its own role and must fulfill its proper function to maintain justice in the city. Plato is also known for his criticism of corrupt forms of government. In his dialogue The Laws, Plato is less utopian than in The Republic and suggests that government should be a mixture of monarchy and democracy, where the law plays a central role. His evolution toward a more moderate stance shows that Plato was open to critical reflection on his own ideas. The immortality of the soul. A recurring theme in Plato's philosophy is the immortality of the soul. In dialogues such as Phaedo and Timaeus, Plato argues that the soul is immortal and that, after death, the soul is freed from the body and returns to the world of ideas. Plato offers several philosophical proofs for the immortality of the soul, based on his theory of ideas and the eternal nature of mathematical and moral truths. Moreover, Plato describes a cycle of reincarnations in which souls experience different lives until they reach a state of purification and wisdom. The philosophical life, which consists in the pursuit of true knowledge, is the best way to free the soul from the cycle of reincarnations and to approach the world of ideas. Platonic love. Plato also addresses the issue of love in his dialogue The Symposium. In this text, Plato presents a conception of love that goes beyond physical desire and focuses on the love of beauty and knowledge. Platonic love is a kind of love that begins with physical attraction but gradually rises toward the love of beauty itself and, finally, toward the love of wisdom or philosophy. This concept of platonic love has been widely misunderstood in popular culture, where it refers to a non-sexual romantic relationship. However, in Plato's philosophy, platonic love is a way to reach truth and knowledge and is part of the process of ascent toward the world of ideas. The influence of Socrates. Plato was deeply influenced by Socrates, his teacher, and many of his dialogues are presented as conversations between Socrates and other characters. Through the figure of Socrates, Plato introduces the Socratic method, a method of philosophical inquiry that consists in asking questions to help the interlocutor arrive at the truth on their own. Socrates does not provide definitive answers but tries to guide his interlocutors through critical reflection. Plato also adopts the Socratic idea that knowledge is intrinsically related to virtue. According to Socrates, evil is the result of ignorance, and no one acts wrongly intentionally, rather, those who do wrong do so because they do not understand the good. Plato follows this line of thought, holding that knowledge of the good is essential for a virtuous and just life. The Platonic dialogues. Most of Plato's work is written in the form of dialogues, in which various characters, often Socrates, discuss philosophical topics. Some of Plato's most important dialogues include the Republic, Phaedo, the Symposium, Timaeus, and Gorgias. These dialogues cover a wide range of topics, from the nature of justice to the immortality of the soul and the structure of the cosmos. Each dialogue has a unique style, and there is often debate about what Plato's definitive position is on certain issues, as he often presents multiple viewpoints in his writings. This dialogical form reflects Plato's commitment to the Socratic method of inquiry, where knowledge is attained through questioning and debate. The myth of In the Republic, Plato presents the myth of a story that serves as the conclusion to his discussion of justice. The myth tells the story of a soldier named who dies in battle but returns to life to recount what he saw in the afterlife. According to the souls of the dead are judged and sent either to heaven or the underworld depending on their actions in life. After a period of 1,000 years, the souls return to earth to be reincarnated, choosing their next life. The myth of emphasizes the importance of justice and virtue, as the choices souls make in the afterlife determine their destiny in future lives. This myth also reinforces Plato's belief in the immortality of the soul and reincarnation, serving as a warning about the moral consequences of one's decisions. For Plato, the philosophical life is the best preparation for a just and virtuous existence, both in this life and the next. Plato and art. Plato was highly critical of art, especially poetry and tragedy. In the Republic, he argues that art imitates the sensible world, which is itself an imperfect copy of the world of ideas. Therefore, art is twice removed from true reality. Moreover, Plato argues that poetry and tragedy appeal to emotions rather than reason, which can corrupt the soul and lead people away from knowledge and virtue. However, Plato also acknowledges that art has educational power if used correctly. In the Laws, he suggests that art can be used to educate citizens and promote virtue, as long as it is controlled by the state and serves the purposes of justice and the common good. This reveals that while Plato was skeptical of the arts, he also recognized their potential to shape moral character if aligned with philosophical principles. Plato's legacy. Plato's impact on the history of philosophy is immense. His ideas have influenced a wide range of fields, from metaphysics and epistemology to politics and ethics. Philosophers such as Aristotle, Plotinus, St. Augustine, and many others have reflected on his ideas and developed them in their own theories. During the Middle Ages, Platonic thought, through the interpretation of Neoplatonic philosophers, influenced Christian thought, especially in the works of St. Augustine. Later, in the Renaissance, the Florentine Academy promoted a revival of Platonism, with thinkers like Marsilio Ficino contributing to the dissemination of Platonic ideas in modern Europe. In contemporary times, Plato's philosophy continues to be a subject of study and debate. His influence extends not only to philosophy but also to political science, literature, art, and psychology. The enduring relevance of his fundamental questions about the nature of reality, knowledge, justice, and the good ensures that Plato remains a central figure in philosophical discourse. Plato's philosophy is an unrelenting pursuit of truth and knowledge, an inquiry into the nature of reality and the human being's place in the world. His theory of ideas, his conception of the immortal soul, and his criticism of democracy and the arts are just a few aspects of his thought that have shaped the course of Western philosophy. Throughout his dialogues, Plato invites his readers to question their assumptions and seek truth beyond appearances, through the exercise of reason and the knowledge of the good.